right, good morning. Committee on Parole is called to order. It is 9:02 a.m. on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. My name is Cheryl Renatza, serving as chairman of today's parole panel. My colleagues on the panel this morning, seated to my left is Ms. Stapleton, and to my right is Mr. Barra. We are at DOC headquarters in Baton Rouge. Would staff here at DOC headquarters please introduce yourself for the record?
Sure.
Cody Watson.
Francis Abbott.
Okay, and we are ready for our first case, and that would be Mr. Perrilloux. Mr. Perrilloux. I'm not sure if I can. There he is. Good morning. We are at David Wade Correctional Center. Good morning, Warden. Would you and your staff please introduce yourself for the record?
Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Michelle Dozat, Warden.
Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Savage. Darren Allen, Executive Staff Officer. Catherine Van Winterswijk, Mental Health.
Danny Henshaw, classification.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for accommodating us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Perrilloux. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your DOC number, sir.
Sure, ma'am. Good morning. My name is ELZEY Jeffrey Perrilloux. My DOC number is 755-998.
Okay, thank you, sir. And let me acknowledge the folks who joined us before we get started. We have here with us in Baton Rouge at DOC headquarters, we have Alicia Perrilloux, Greta Dewey, Shannon Weber, and Valerie Perrilloux. Valerie will be speaking in support, and we'll call on her at the appropriate time to do that. We also have representing the victims by Zoom, Rochelle Guidry, Leon Guidry, Keith Hotard, and Rachel Hotard. Ms. Guidry and Mr. Hotard and Ms. Hotard will all be speaking at the appropriate time. We'll call on them to do so. First, Mr. Perrilloux, I'm going to read some identifying information into the record, ask you to verify it. Then we'd like you to take a moment to tell the panel why you believe we should vote favorably for you today. We'll hear from the warden, those people who indicated they'd like to speak. Then we'll start our parole interview with you. Your case has been assigned to Mr. Barra. He'll take the lead on the interview. So, Mr. Perrilloux, you are classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 13-year, 6-month sentence, having been sentenced in October 19, 2020, 3 counts of indecent behavior with juveniles. You received a 4.5-year sentence on each of those running consecutive. Your parole eligibility date is April 12, 2025. You don't earn good time, and your full term date is April 12, 2034. Is that information correct, Mr. Perrilloux?
Yes, ma'am. That is accurate.
So would you take a moment and tell us why you're in jail and why do you believe we should vote favorably for you today?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I appreciate it. As you mentioned earlier, I was convicted in 2020 of 3 counts of indecent behavior with juveniles. I was sentenced consecutively 4.5 years on each count for a total of 13.5 years. Since I arrived here at David Wade, I have participated in every single class that has been offered to me for rehabilitation purposes. I have attended worship services on a regular basis, continue to do so up through this point in time. I spend most of my time when I'm not working in the laundry, reading or in prayer or conversing with some of my fellow inmates here at the N5 unit at David Wade. I've had a lot of time to reflect on all the things that brought me here to begin with, not just in terms of the case itself and what transpired leading up to my conviction, but also at 57 years old, a lot of things throughout my life. Both the things that I did that were probably considered good and some of the things that would probably be considered mistakes that I've made in my life. And to be fair, I've had my share of mistakes. However, having said all of that, I think inherently my family will attest to the fact that I am indeed a good person. I have a good heart, and I do try to help others when the opportunity arises. That is inclusive of my stay here in David Wade. I've attempted to be a positive influence on my fellow inmates, have tried to keep them in a frame of mind that allows them to not only excel during their time here, but also to look forward to the opportunity to themselves help others. And so I think when push comes to shove, if I'm given the opportunity to get out and be free again, I do intend to be a contributing member to society like I was for most of my life. I do intend to do those things that not only allow me to be a family man again for my children, but also to be a contributing member to society. And to that end, it is my hope to be able to form a nonprofit group that is dedicated to helping innocent people who have been wrongly convicted in prison, as well as those who have been overly sentenced, and to educate people on some of the pitfalls and traps that they could fall in, perhaps, that might lead them to be questioned about some of their conduct as to whether or not it's appropriate or not appropriate. And so I know it's a tall order, and some may consider it a pipe dream, but fortunately, with my background in law, my background as a district court judge, and my background as an assistant district attorney for 15 years in St. John the Baptist Parish, I believe I have the footwork necessary to be able to establish such a nonprofit group. And so I would hope that today you consider my early release and understand that the things that transpired that brought me here to begin with will never occur. I fully intend to completely comply with all the obligations that I'll have in terms of being on parole as a parolee to show that your decision will be meritorious if indeed you grant me that opportunity. So thank you very much. And again, I know your decision is not easy, and I do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Warden Dozat, can you add anything for us?
I'll just add that he, since he has been at David Wade for the last 4 years, he hasn't received any rule violation report. So his conduct has been excellent since he's been here. He's completed reentry, living in balance, stress management, victim awareness, and the sex offender treatment program while he's been housed in N5. And then he currently works in the laundry, and he has a good work evaluation from his supervisor.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'd like to hear from those in support. We'd like to hear from Valerie. Valerie, if you'd step up to the podium. Morning.
My name is Valerie Parole, and I'm speaking in support of my father, Jeff Parole.
But can you speak up just a little bit? Our microphone is on the other side of this polling. We want him to be able to hear what you say.
I am his youngest daughter and will be speaking on behalf of my family. Present here with me today, as stated, my dad's ex-wife, my mom, his sister, and my aunt, his cousin. Unfortunately, my sister could not be in attendance today due to medical school obligation, and his previous attorney, Ms. Kim, was impacted by the hurricane, leaving her unable to be here as well. Each of these individuals, including myself and others, are committed to helping my dad reintegrate in society. Whether it's finding him a job, giving him a place to stay, helping him contribute to our community again, he has a strong support system ready to reunite and deal with him. Growing up, my father has always been a pillar of strength, love, and laughter for those surrounding him. His absence has caused us heartache as we try to navigate life with the pain of separation. Throughout the last 40 years, he has continued to play a vital role in our lives through various phone calls, emails, and in-person visits. His presence in our life is irreplaceable, and I know that he has so much love and wisdom to share. Over these past 4 years, my father has missed many milestones for my sister and I. College graduations, a medical school acceptance, white coat ceremony, birthdays, holidays, to name some. More than those events, he has missed the everyday moments that shape our bond, the laughter, our silly jokes, the lessons, being there for my sister when her 7-year relationship ended, getting a random phone call from his daughters, asking for advice, and the simple joys of being a girl dad, changing my tire when I'm left stranded at school, making sure I'm keeping up with oil changes, giving me a hug when I'm having a bad day, taking me to lunch on a random day. Most importantly, he has missed the sudden, unexpected death of his father in 2021. My dad's presence will not only bring comfort, but also allow us to honor my grandfather's memory as a favor. I believe this closure is crucial for all of us, and it would help my dad continue on his path of rehabilitation. His commitment to personal growth and demonstration of strength and resilience is an inspiration to his loved ones. He has completed courses and earned certificates through the past 4 years and also received a Tiger Risk score of 1. My dad has shown that he is ready to contribute positively to our family and the community. My dad, I miss you deeply and long for the day when we can be together again. Your presence means the world to me, and I cherish all the memories we shared. Regardless of what happens today, know that I am here for you, supporting you every step of the way. Thank you so much. To the members of the parole board, I hope you can see the potential for healing and growth that my father represents for our family. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, we'd like to hear from the victim's family. First, could we hear from Ms. Guidry? Guidry, are you there? Yeah, we can't hear you. Are you on mute? Can you unmute your microphone?
Thank you. Someone just unmuted my microphone. Thank you for allowing us to be here today and speak. I first want to say that my heart does go out to Valerie and Dominique. I don't wish to see any child suffer, but I have a child as well, and her name is Anna Guidry, and I'm here to speak for her today. I am not her mother. I am her stepmother. Her mother could not be here because she passed away of cancer. Something that Mr. Jeff Perilloux knew and used to pray and used her vulnerability to pray on her. I came today with an open heart, hoping to hear from Jeff and I'm sorry, or, admitting what he has done wrong, because that's all we really ever wanted. But all I hear is speaking of rehabilitation and starting a nonprofit for people who are wrongly accused. God is the main judge here, right? So he knows. You know what you've done. He knows what you've done. We're all sinners, and we all have faults. I hope the Holy Spirit touches your heart just so we can all just move on from this and have closure. Just say sorry. Just admit what you have done to our children so that we can all move on, so that your daughters can move on. That is a true testimony of strength. That is the truest testimony of strength, to admit that you have done wrong and then go get help. Get help. When you get out, get help. That's it. That's all we ask. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Guidry, for sharing. Appreciate it. I know that was difficult. Now we have the Hotards, and I'll let them decide who's going to speak first.
Hi, I'm here. This is Rachel Hotard. Can you hear me?
Can.
Good morning. Again, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to speak on our daughter, Emily Hotard's behalf. She is at work right now, having to take a break to join along on the YouTube. My husband is here on side of me right here at home. First, I'd just like to say, you know, before all this happened, Jeff Perilloux was a friend of ours, an acquaintance, somebody that we absolutely trusted our daughter with, to take care of, to protect when, you know, she was with him in his presence with his daughter that she was friends with. You know, we trusted him completely. We had no reason to not trust him, you know. But then after this incident happened and the trial came, and seeing his actions, hearing the things that happened, we realized how deceitful of a man he really was, and how he, you know, preyed upon our trust of him and our daughter and took advantage of that. And I feel like the same things that he's saying in here right now, you know, speaking of, he's going to make a nonprofit for people wrongly accused, but yet he wants to say he's done his rehabilitation. It's kind of speaking out of both sides of his mouth, where it's either one or the other. You know, I kind of came on with Ms. Guidry in the hopes of maybe we would have had some kind of apology and some kind of admittance to it, but you know, it's not what we're obviously getting here. We're just afraid that he, you know, during the trial was very arrogant, very defiant, and that he did nothing wrong. So our fear is that he gets out and begins to prey upon other people and tries to build that trust again, and ends up kind of doing the same thing to other young girls. Or is he going to still now be in the vicinity of where our girls are? And, you know, that fear of just, you know, those kinds of things coming up again. I just really feel like I need to stress the point that he thinks he did nothing wrong. And he was very convincing and deceitful and conniving. And I just feel like he can't be trusted. I completely feel for his children and the events that dad had to miss for them, and the passing of his dad, all the events, good and bad, but his actions that he did, he chose this for himself and knew if he got caught, there would be consequences, and he brought that on himself. So I on behalf of and myself, we just would like to say that we do oppose him being paroled at this time. And we appreciate you taking the time to listen to our concerns.
And does Mr. Hotard wish to speak?
He's right here.
Yes, ma'am. I'd just like to reiterate the point that he never admitted he was wrong, but then he's saying he's rehabilitated. How can you be rehabilitated if you never have come to terms with what you did was wrong? And then to come out and say he's going to do a nonprofit for people wrongly convicted and overly sentenced, that's a passive aggressive way of saying that he's not guilty and didn't do anything wrong. And if he truly believes he did nothing wrong, was to protect the community from this never happening again. And my last point to the board is to please consider the impact on releasing him back into the same community where some of his victims still live. And that's it. Thanks for your time.
So much so. All right, Mr. Perilloux, would you answer any questions, Mr. Byron?
Sure. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm going to start out by just summarizing a little bit of the case. This is a case of a sitting judge who used a position of power over juvenile friends of his daughter and committed indecent behavior with the juvenile 3 counts while taking them on Florida vacations at his own residence. He was found guilty at a jury trial of all 3 counts and sentenced to serve a total of 13.5 years at Hardeman. The victims, as you just saw, and family members are opposed to the release. When it comes down to questions, I guess the big question, which is the elephant in the room right now, is were you wrongfully accused and are you still claiming to be innocent right now?
I missed the first part of your question, sir. I'm sorry. Would you repeat it?
So the first part of it is, were you wrongfully accused and are you still maintaining your innocence today, right now?
The answer to that question is emphatically yes. I was wrongfully accused, and I am maintaining my innocence as of today, and I still continue to fight for my innocence in the court system, and I will continue to do so. Even if I'm granted parole, I will continue to pursue the avenues that are available for me to prove my innocence and to be fully exonerated. And let me clarify that real quick by saying this. I completely understand the position that the parents of the girls involved in this case are in. I completely understand that. They have been fed information from the Attorney General's office that have convinced them that I am a predator, that I am not. I am not a child predator. I never have been, and I never will be. And I have to say that whether that sways your vote or not today, I am not going to say that I did something that I did not do for the sake of expediently leaving prison. If I did something wrong, I would apologize for it. And to that end, if any conduct that I engaged in, any conduct or anything that I said ever crossed a level of comfort for the parents or for the kids, I am indeed sorry for that. But I did not commit sexual crimes against any of these girls, period.
Where do you plan on living and what do you plan on doing if we were to release you?
Well, my plan right now is to move in with my sister, whose husband, by the way, is a police officer, has been for over 30 years. I would be living in their residence. He would keep an eye on me just for the sake of protecting the community, if indeed there is a concern within the community that I might do something like this again, according to the statements of the parents. And my intention at this point in time for employment is to go into the seafood business, which my father was in for over 40 years. I intend to go into something completely different in terms of what I've done for my entire professional career, but a career that I'm also familiar with due to my dad's involvement in the seafood business for over 30 years. And that would be on the wholesale side of things.
That's all my questions.
I've got some. Mr. Perilloux, let me ask you something.
Yes, ma'am.
The text that you sent the girls,
Yes, ma'am.
that at first they said that you were, well, they felt like you were like a second father to them. They trust.
Correct.
So, that was the level of influence that you had over them, which is often seen in these types of cases. It's going to be a father, stepfather, close family member, something like that. So let me ask you, they spoke about the text being weird as to what you would say to them, and you would give heart shapes at the end and different things like that. And then some of the questions that you would ask them, did you send those types of questions with those types of emojis to your own daughters at that same time frame? If we were to compare the text to your own daughters, because they said their own daddies would not have sent them those types of texts, and they wouldn't have ended the text the way you did with hearts and stuff like that. Did you do that with your own daughters?
I did, with not only with my own daughters, but with my nieces as well. My sister has 2 children who are older than mine, who were like my first daughters, okay? The emoji stuff that you're talking about, ma'am, with all due respect, and the little heart symbols, that was a new feature that was on the iPhones around the time that these communications occurred. I was tinkering with those little text message features. I guess that's what you'd call them. I'm not overly tech oriented. However, those heart messages were just that. They were simple ways of saying, I love you in a paternal type way, because I did view these girls as family members, just like I did with my own daughters, obviously, as well as my sister's 2 daughters. I was affectionate and I was kind. And if that offends anyone, then of course, I'm sorry for that. That was never my intention. My intention was to show them how important they were to me in a paternal sense, not in some perverted, predatory sense.
Well, that's why they had problems with it, because that wasn't paternal, the way those messages came across, because they said their own fathers didn't end their messages the way you did, and then phrase his messages, Papa J loves you, and then end it with these emojis and stuff, thinking of you and smiling, you make me happy. pie with a drawn heart. You are my sunshine. So it wasn't sexual in nature, but for the girls, it was odd. But you were so important in their life, they gave you leeway with that type of stuff. And then when I asked
Well,
you, just
ma'am,
how did you do that with your own daughters, you said no, but you did it with your nieces. Why did you make
I did it
things?
with I didn't say no. I said yes. Not only did I do it with my own daughters, I also did it with my nieces. Those
Okay,
are,
so
and
let me ask
some
you about
friends as
touching.
well.
Let's get
Let
into
me,
let's get into the touching, because you're saying you didn't do anything. So let's get into the touching. You know, like these were young teenagers. And here's some of the stuff that was unusual. If suntan lotion, you insisted on putting it on these young girls. One girl needed some vapor rub. And she said that she just needed some vapor rub, and you did rub it on her chest. Those things are not normal for a grown man to do with anybody other than an infant. So why did you think those things were not crossing the line? Because they did. So why did you not think that?
well, first of all, let me just, I will answer that question, but let me finish my point on the text messages. Every message I ever sent the girls was not done in a surreptitious fashion. Their parents could have seen any of these messages at any time, and if they had an issue with the manner in which I communicated with the girls, they certainly could have told me something. I did not have any communications with Miss Hotard's daughter. Emily Hotard received no text messages ever from me, not one text message. I didn't even have her number. The only two girls who I texted were one who has not accused me of any crime, who is not involved in this case as a victim, and the other was Miss Guidry's daughter, who I had texted for probably 4 years before anything happened. As far as the touching was concerned, the only times that I ever touched these girls were at their request, and it wasn't on a frequent basis. Anna Guidry had a problem with her neck after she would swim, her shoulders. She would ask me at swim meets and or at home when she was with my daughter if I would simply massage her neck a little bit. These were not full body 10-minute, 20-minute massages. These were little 30-second, let me try to loosen your neck up a little bit type touching. That was the extent of it. As far as the vapor rub incident, which is the misdemeanor that isn't involved in what you all are dealing with today, yes, that was something that I did for Shayna, who had been in my life since she was 1 year old. And I put vapor rub right here. It took me all of 3 seconds to rub vapor rub right here. If you can see me, that's where I put the vapor rub, right here. It wasn't an ongoing type thing or a frequent thing that I touched these girls in any way, nor did I have any desire to. There were limited occasions where I did indeed engage in physical contact. And to the extent that that physical contact was deemed to be inappropriate or crossed some line of comfort, I am sorry for that. But that was, my intention was never to touch them inappropriately, ever, not once.
Okay, but do you think these girls all said consecutively their daddy wouldn't do that? So I guess, I mean, we're just gonna
Y'all hear me?
let's on this, so we're not gonna go any further with this because you don't see that there was a problem with it. I do understand, but I do understand why they loved you and they let you do things that they felt like this shouldn't be happening. And then when the one girl came out of the room crying that it went too far for her, then the others admitted she had done things that went too far for them. So, you know, you had the one girl that your daughter was her best friend since what, they were in the 2nd grade. You got a lot of broken hearts on both sides.
I am aware of that, and I feel horrible about that. I do. These people, as Ms. Hotard said, were friends of mine, generational friends. We're talking about friends of their parents and my parents and their grandparents and my grandparents. We're talking about generational friendships that have been fractured as a result of this. And honestly, I think communication early on could have avoided some of this, and maybe better decision making on my part. But at the time, I did not think about the negative side of physical contact because I didn't intend to touch them inappropriately. So I just want to make sure you all understand. Yes, I totally understand the feedback that the parents are offering here, but I have to make it clear that my intention was never nefarious with these girls. I truly considered them to be like family to me. And everything I ever did for them or did with them was from a familial type standpoint. In hindsight, yes, ma'am, it may very well not have been the best decisions, but at the time they were made, I had no idea that any of the girls were uncomfortable with me on the manner in which I treated them. And that is the best way I can put
Time
it,
out,
quite
one
frankly.
sec, just 1 second here. Okay, time out. We're gonna move on, and I understand where the girls were coming from. So that's the end of my questions.
Anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Perilloux, briefly before we
I did not hear you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, other than, again, I appreciate your consideration. I know not only as a longtime attorney, but as a judge, decisions are not easy when they involve these types of situations. But I want to make it perfectly clear before you vote that I never, ever intended to do anything to harm any of these girls or in any way touch them in an inappropriate fashion. The outcome that we see now is not at all what I intended. And I sincerely apologize for that. And again, I thank you for your time.
I think the panel's prepared to vote. Mr. Byron?
Mr. Perilloux, you are right. You do bring us to a very tough decision. But obviously the jury didn't believe your side of the story. And so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to vote to deny parole today based on the serious nature of the crime and that you only serve 4 years off of the 14-year sentence, which is a fraction, in the strong victim opposition. I'll suggest that you keep on doing exactly what you're doing and reapply at your next option after you serve just a little more time, because 4 years off of 13 is really not justice for the jury verdict.
Mrs. Stapleton?
I concur with Mr. Barra.
Mr. Perilloux, I also agree that it's insufficient time served based on the jury verdict. I do wish you well. My vote is to deny for those reasons. I do wish you well in your quest to appeal. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning. Mr. Lee, would you introduce yourself, sir? Tell us your name and DOC number.
Andre Lee, 325813.
All right. Let me introduce the panel to you. My name is Cheryl Renatza. Seated to my left, Mrs. Stapleton, and to my right is Mr. Byron. I want to recognize that you are represented by counsel. Counsel, would you introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, ma'am. Caitlin Newswanger. I'm an attorney with Innocence Project New Orleans.
Okay, and let's see, here with us in Baton Rouge, we have Joseph Williams, Terrence Wynn, and Ledrick McKeever. By Zoom, Tarina Diggs, Tanya Robinson, and Nick Pligler. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And for those of you who've indicated, Terrence here will be speaking and Mr. Pligler will be speaking at the appropriate time. We'll ask him to do so. First, Mr. Lee, I'll read some information into the record. Then I'll ask you to take a moment to tell us why you believe we should vote favorably for you today. We'll hear from the warden and from the folks that have indicated they'd like to speak. And at the end, we'd like your attorney to close it out for us before we vote. All right, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Mr. Lee, you are classified as a fourth felony offender. You're currently serving a 20-year sentence as a habitual offender for possession with intent to distribute marijuana. Your parole eligibility date is August 31st, 2023, and your good time date is July 13, 2034. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for the record, I want to note that your original sentence was 40 years.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right? You were resentenced in August of 23 to 20 years, which made you immediately parole eligible.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you tell us, sir, why are you in jail and why do you think we ought to vote favorably for you today?
Well, I'm in jail because at the time I was working. My fiance wasn't working, and we had just had a newborn baby, and the bills began to pile up, and I decided to try to sell marijuana to supplement my income, and it just came down to me making a bad decision, and it has changed my life completely. And I take full responsibility for my actions.
All right, so why do you think we ought to vote favorably for you?
Because I've taken this time to work on myself. Every time I was previously in prison, I feel like I was ready to get out. In fact, most people in prison feel like they're ready to get out. The difference this time is I'm prepared to get out and never come back. Simply being ready isn't enough. I realized I have to have goals and a plan for success in place and be committed to reaching those goals and fulfilling those plans. If I'm not prepared to get out and never come back, all I have is a one-way ticket right back. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years of my life. There were three things I've done to get prepared. I figured out what type of man I want to be. I want to be a leader and a light to my family and my community. 2, I figured out what it is I want to accomplish in life. I want to be a mentor. I want to start my own business. And mainly, I never want to return to prison. 3, I figured out the obstacles I might face and how to deal with them mentally. I have to have goals and plans, and I have to avoid negative thinking and poor decision making. I need to keep my mind on God, goals, and surround myself with good people to hold me accountable to the changes that I'm committed to making. My biggest regret is that I didn't have this understanding earlier in life. The biggest thing that I worked on is my mindset. My mindset has to be set on success and positivity and making myself better. What I put into my mind is what's going to come out of my life. I realize that now. First, I have to achieve mental freedom before I can actually achieve physical freedom. This is the basis of every one of the programs that I've taken. Anger management, living in balance, victim awareness, 12 steps, AA, reentry, etc. They're all based on renewing your mind and building your fortitude, because that is what's going to govern me. It's not my responses, my actions, or my reactions, because all those things are predicated on my mindset, how I see myself and how I view myself in the world. I have to believe that I have value. I had to increase my financial knowledge. This was one of my biggest problems. I didn't know how to manage money. I didn't know how to try to live within my means instead of above them. I had to learn how to build my credit up. I had no basic understanding of CDs, IRAs, or stocks, bonds, and I've worked on that for the last 9 years. And I just hope you can give me a chance to prove that I have value and that I can be an asset to the community and the state instead of being a liability that I am right now.
Wow, you've given that some thought. I'm glad you came prepared today. We're going to talk about all that in a minute. First, we're going to hear from Warden Dozat. Warden?
Andre is, he has an excellent conduct record. He has one rule violation, and that was in 2017. And his sanction for that was suspended. He has earned his GED since he's been incarcerated. He's taken several classes. He is very active in AANA, and he's currently in our carpentry program, which he does have about 30 to 45 days before he completes. So I would like to see him complete that if possible. He does have a residence plan, of an approved residence plan to live with his mother in Shreveport, and an employment plan to work at Grizzly Auto. And he has a good work evaluation from his work supervisor. So he's not any problem here at David Wade, and it has progressed very well.
Good to hear. Thank you. So we'll hear next from the support, people who want to speak in support. Let's hear from Mr. McClick.
No, I don't speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi there. Good morning, board. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Mick Kliegler. I am the social worker at Innocence Project New Orleans, and I oversee our client services division there. So my team begins working with our clients pre-release to create a reentry plan. And then for the first 6 months at least, post-release, we check in with them a minimum of once a week, often far more frequently. And we're working on things like getting them enrolled in benefits, health insurance, support with employment, housing, tech literacy, using a phone, budgeting and financial management, and then as well as the kind of social and emotional dimensions of adjusting to life outside of prison. And our reentry services are not time limited, so we continue to work with our clients as long as they want our support. It's been a real blessing getting to know Mr. Lee. In our conversations, he has demonstrated self-reflection, he's demonstrated thoughtfulness, as you've seen, accountability, and I believe he has a very solid reentry plan. So if the board sees fit to grant Mr. Lee parole, as the warden mentioned, he will return to live with his mother, Miss Sandra Lee, in Shreveport. She owns that home. It's a 2-bedroom. She's been there for 27 years, and there's a bedroom waiting for Mr. Lee. I spoke to her yesterday. She's ready to have him home. She's really eager for his company and also his care as she ages and it gets harder for her to get around. He also has a job waiting for him at Grizzly Mechanic. That's a cousin of his, Mr. Eddie Lee, and it's 5 blocks away from his mother's house, so he can just walk to work. As the board may know, Mr. Lee successfully completed the Steve Hoyle program, and he attends, like the warden said, AA and NA meetings devotedly every Thursday. Our team has already created kind of a map and schedule of AA and NA meetings near his mother's house in Shreveport, so he can continue with that practice as it's very important to him. and his recovery. In addition to his mother and his cousin who has offered him the job, Mr. Lee has a number of other people in Shreveport who want to show up for him. You're going to hear from Mr. Terrence Wynn with the PIPES program. He also has another cousin who lives across the street from his mother, Miss Angela. He has 2 daughters in Shreveport with whom he has maintained contact, and 2 grandchildren as well, one of whom I believe is just 12 days old. So he's looking forward to meeting her. We are committed to supporting Mr. Lee, my team, in the short term and the long term. We will do everything we can to ensure a successful transition home for him, and I really have confidence that he can adhere to this plan and he can build a meaningful life as a son to his mother, as a father to his children, as a grandfather, and also just as a member of the Shreveport community. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. Mr. Wynn, we hear from you.
Good morning, and thank y'all for this opportunity. I'm the co-executive director of the organization PIPE. And we're here to say that we support Mr. Lee in anything that he's gonna do, which is gonna be positive. The average person that leaves prison don't have support. So if there was a return, it's because of that reason. But we at PIPES, we're gonna support Mr. Lee because we understand Mr. Lee's plight. We understand everything he's been through. And each and every one of the members of our organization, our phones will always be on for him as they're on for one another. Mr. Lee has proven that he's not only a prisoner, he's a model prisoner. He's a prisoner that other prisoners can look to show that how you make changes. He's come to prison and got his education. He's also on the verge of getting training. 2 things that's constantly needed for anyone that's coming to prison and gonna return to society. You need to be educated and you need to have a training. He has a great reentry plan. He has people that love him and gonna support him. And those are the things that everyone needs to just make it in life, especially when you come home from prison. So PIPE, we're gonna support him in any kind of. Thank you.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Where y'all located?
In Shreveport.
Do y'all do anything outside of Shreveport?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Would it be a possibility for him to have housing outside of Shreveport?
I think it's possible.
Thank
you.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Lee, your case has been assigned to me, so I'll take the lead on the questions, on the interview questions, and then I'll defer to my colleagues for their questions. So, I really liked what you said about your goal and your plans. When I look at your record, I see lots of other arrests. You know, I did mention you're a 4th offender, but you have lots of other arrests for possession with intent to distribute, misdemeanor DWI. Tell us about, and you mentioned briefly, and I think others have too, what is your sobriety plan?
My sobriety plan is just to surround myself with supportive people, stay busy in the community, focus on helping other people, and let that be my reward. I look forward to being a mentor. I would like to tell you a story if we have time. As you know, I got re-sentenced from 40 years to 20 years. And when I went back to Caddo, they have a holding area where they house prisoners, and it's called intake. And I've been going to this place for a long time, as you know. And when I went back, I saw something that I never saw before. I saw a lot of juveniles in this facility with grown-ups. And that sight touched me. I've dreamed about that sight every night that I go to sleep, seeing kids, babies in this prison with grown-ups. And I know that somebody from my community has to step up and do something about it. I feel like I've been part of the problem because I've neglected that duty of being a father and a leader in the community. And that's my main goal that I want to focus on, is helping to restore this community and let it have great respect. And I just want to be there for other people because I got a lot of people, as you can see, that are here to support me. And I'm not going to let them down.
Well, let me just advise you, and you may be aware, but I have to, for the record, we have some opposition also. We have opposition from the judicial officials in Caddo Parish, the district attorney's office, the sheriff's office, Shreveport Police Department, and then the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General office is opposed based on your habitual offender status, as is the sheriff's office. So you need to be aware of that. I do look back on your record and I see a couple of times when you absconded supervision.
Yeah, I believe I absconded once. I was still really a kid, and I had the mind frame that the system was against me. They wasn't there to help me. It was just bad thinking. But I came to realize later that they're actually a resource. And I believe I completed a couple of parole periods satisfactorily, and I just changed my mindset about that.
All right, well, I'm going to defer to my colleagues. First, I want to note, I didn't make a note in my record that in your carpentry class, you're first in your class.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations. And I think I said, my note was that your degree is expected at the end of this month.
Yes, ma'am.
First, Halloween.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably about 30 days from now.
Mr. Barra has some questions.
Yeah. My question, more like a statement. I'm looking at your record and you are pulled up with charges for drugs. And I'm looking at your rap sheet. 11 of those arrests on your rap sheet are all in Shreveport. I'm almost on your side, but I don't think you ought to be returning to Shreveport because that's where you get into all your trouble. I know you've been in all them classes and you heard change your people, places, and things, huh? 2 out of 3, I don't think it's gonna work for you. Because you got a bad record and a bad problem with falling back into it. You've had multiple periods of supervision that you failed because of it. So my question is do you have any other place that you can go to besides Shreveport? I asked I forgot his name with the pipes program, and I'm gonna ask Ms. Newswanger, is there any way to work something out for this guy where he won't be returning back to where the root of the problem is with all the law enforcement that's opposed to him being there?
Yes, absolutely. You know, we can work together with the pipes program, and, you know, obviously you've heard from our social worker that we can work on finding some housing, whether it's transitional in Baton Rouge. We have a lot of partners in Baton Rouge and New Orleans that we can work on that if that is a concern.
All right. And I see you previously completed Steve Hall in 2007.
Yes, sir.
You continue to be involved in drugs after that. Tell me something you've learned new that you didn't know before that's going to make this term different. What is it that you learned new? Besides, I understand the part about the revelation of the juveniles and wanting to, you know, help on that part, but what is the new you's attitude and how you fight it? Because you know, if you go back to Shreveport, your buddies are still going to come back around there, and even when you get out, they're going to be trying to contact.
Yeah, I know this, and I've decided that I don't have any buddies. My family are going to be my only buddies, and people that are positive. If they're not positive, they're not gonna be allowed into my life. And I understand that I'm my only enemy. It's my thinking. If anybody has any power over me, it's because I allowed them to. I'm not willing to allow anybody or any more substances to have power over me. I know that I have value, and I've gotten a little older. I'm 51 years old now. A lot of those things I just didn't think about anybody else. I only thought about me. And from the perspective of my family, I'm not doing time alone. My mother is hurting. My kids are hurting. And I never put two and two together about how prison affected my family. I only always thought about me. It was never about my mom. For almost 10 years, I've embarrassed my mom. And I'll never put her through that stress again in life. I owe her that because she's stressing right now about me being in prison. And I'm no longer the guy who made bad decisions. I'm the guy who's making amends for those bad decisions. I know just because I'm in prison doesn't mean I can't get better. All throughout history, there have been people that went to prison and got better and changed their life around. The only difference between them and me at the time I was committing crimes is I wasn't putting forth the effort. I didn't have the support. I was kind of winging it all along. I really didn't ask for help. I didn't seek it out. I had too much pride to ask somebody to help me. Now I realize that you can't do it alone. Humans are social creatures. We have to depend on each other. And I just feel like I have a lot of support in place, people that I don't even know they're willing to support me because they see the goals that I have and they see the strides that I've made. Because it doesn't really matter where I'm at. It's because if my mindset is focused on these goals, starting my own business, helping people, that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm not gonna let nothing stop me.
Very good, thank you.
All right, Ms. Newswinger, would you like to close it out for us?
Sure, thank you so much. And good morning to this panel. It's so nice to see you all again. Again, my name is Caitlin Newswinger with Innocence Project New Orleans. And, you know, I'm not going to rehash all the wonderful things that you've already heard about Mr. Lee, but I do want to point out just a few things. You know, Mr. Lee was resentenced 1 year ago, and while he did receive the benefit of a reduced sentence, he didn't necessarily receive the parole benefit. You know, he comes before you today, having served almost 25% of his original 40-year sentence. And I hear your concerns about returning to the community where his criminal history has occurred. And with that, I do want to point out that right now is probably the best time and the best opportunity to release Mr. Lee, because this panel can impose certain conditions on his release, whereas if he is to serve his full sentence, that would not be possible, and he might return up to the community. I want to point out that we do have very strong relationships with the Louisiana Parole Project in Baton Rouge. We also have a relationship with the First 72 Plus, which I know that you're familiar with them. And so if that is a concern of yours, we are happy to get on it and get on the phone to make that work so Mr. Lee can have housing outside of the community where he has these convictions. And just a note that, again, this is a great opportunity for Mr. Lee's release because he is young. I mean, he has said that he's older, but he is only 51 years old. And he has immediate employment. He is very capable of working. He has housing. He has a low Tiger score, which I know that is the requirement now, but he's had that for some time. This isn't just, you know, something that started a year ago, which means he's a very low risk of recidivism. He's not a threat to the community, and I hear your concerns about going back to the community, but he does not have any convictions for violent offenses In fact, as you've heard, and I'm sure you might agree with me, that he would be an asset and an advocate for the community and for a lot of the younger folks coming into prison. And Mr. Lee has really recognized that he has created victims out of selling drugs and using drugs. And he has recognized, and I know that he hasn't spoken about that as much yet. And if you want to question him about it, I'm sure that you'll hear from him that victim awareness really taught him that he created victims out of his family and his community. You've heard him talk about his mom and his family, who those are his buddies now. And I hope you'll take note that he's not a violent offender. And so with that, with his strong, employment support, his reentry support, his long-term employment plan, the fact that he is physically and emotionally stable, that you would grant his parole today. And thank you so much.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Mr. Lee, I'll be voting first. Your case was assigned to me, as you know. I like all the things you said and the plans you've laid in place. I do share Mr. Barra's concern about people, places, and things and returning to the Shreveport community right at first. My vote today, based on your low risk score, the positive remarks by the warden, and really your transition plan would be to grant your parole, but to another suitable approved residence plan outside of the Shreveport area. I would like to add special conditions. You do like to talk a lot, so I do want you to do community service, speaking to at-risk youth. You've already said that's what you want to do, but I will require you to do that at least 3 hours each quarter. And follow whatever the transition plan that's set forth by the Innocence Project. Good luck, Mrs. Stapleton.
Thank you.
Mr. Barra.
I'm gonna concur and vote to grant also, but I'm gonna have the special condition that you spend the first year innocent parole project and follow all recommendations for treatment for the first year. And like she said, stay out of that Shreveport area, because that's where all your trouble happens, and the people down there don't want you there. The law enforcement. Sorry about your mother, but she can visit you in Baton Rouge or somewhere else.
We will require too that you finish the carpentry program first. Get that certificate.
Okay, that's great. That's exactly what I want.
Okay.
So your parole has been granted conditionally.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. Mr. Manning, good morning.
Yes. Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
Jason Leif Manning, 469-274.
Yes, sir, Mr. Manning. My name is Cheryl Renatza. Seated to my left is Mrs. Stapleton, and to my is Mr. Byron. Before we get started, I want to recognize we have some folks who have joined us and want to speak today. We have Ashley Hibbert and Chadwick, and at the appropriate time, we'll call on them to do so. First, I'm going to read some identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm it, and then we'd like for you to tell us why you believe we should vote favorably for you today. We'll hear from the warden, and then we'll hear from the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak, and then we'll start our interview process with you. Ms. Stapleton has been assigned your case, so she's going to take that lead. So, Mr. Manning, you're classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 25-year sentence. You were sentenced originally in April of 2003, aggravated incest and indecent behavior with a juvenile. Looks like you were afforded probation. However, that was revoked in 2011, December of 2011. You have a parole eligibility date, April 15 of 2025. You don't earn good time, so your full term date is in August of 2031. Is that information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Manning, would you take a moment and tell us why you believe we should vote for you today? What got you into jail, and why do you think we ought to grant you an early release?
Well, being young and dumb and not understanding things you do is why I'm in jail. And through the years, I've learned wisdom. I start to understand. Basically a changed man from what I was 20-something years ago.
All right, Warden Dozak, what can you tell us about Mr. Manning?
Well, Jason's been here since 2015. He did get his GED in 2008 at West Carroll facility. He is active in the 12 steps, and he has reentry program. Completed anger management, sex offender program, substance abuse in October of 23, and victims awareness in November of 23. He just recently started the Surf Save class, which he will finish early December. So he just started that last week. We do have an approved residence plan at the Veterans Housing Outreach in New Orleans, and his employment plan is to work in the restaurant industry. He does have a good evaluation from his work supervisor, and his last write-up was in 2018, and he hasn't had any disciplinary issues since then.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we'd like to hear from those who wish to speak. First, we'd like to hear from, I don't know, are y'all together? No?
We're not together.
No, ma'am.
Okay, let's hear from Ashley Hibbert first.
Okay. Yeah. So when asked earlier this morning what my relationship to Jason was, I froze, and not for the reasons that most would think. My initial thought was I was the victim, of course. That's why I'm here. But y'all already knew that. You have a list of us victims. Y'all wanted my actual relationship. Should I say sperm donor? I can't say father. He wasn't that. Thank God for a mother that heard my hesitation and she spoke up for me. I don't like to take on the victim role. I never have. But this man 25 years ago tried to take away my innocence. He took away my childhood. He took away my rights at having a normal family, a father, an idea what it meant to grow up with a complete family. To not blame myself for everything when it was not my fault, because my whole child and adolescence, I was told it was my fault that Jason was in jail and that I could get him out by his family, by all the Mannings. He took away any happy childhood memories I've ever had because I blocked out all my memories to keep away all the bad memories. I was later diagnosed with heart issues called POTS that link back to childhood trauma. It can be caused from always being in a fight or flight mode, and this has affected my day-to-day health. But through all of this, I want y'all to know, and I want Jason to know, that he does not get to choose who I am today and how I get to live my life. I am not that little girl, and I am not a victim. I am a survivor. I'm a warrior, and I want to fight for others that have been in my shoes and prevent them from being in my shoes. And if that means keeping him from getting parole and creating new victims, then I will do everything in my power to do so. And if there's anything that I can help clarify that I've spoke on or the notice that I sent in before, please let me know.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for speaking to us today. I know that takes a lot of courage, and you're a very strong woman.
Thank you.
We hear from Ms. Chadwick.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, as you heard from my daughter, it is still affecting my kids to this day. And the original charge was 3 children. My son was included in that charge, but because he broke down and was inconsolable on the stand, they were not able to charge him with 3 counts. He was only charged with both of my daughters, 2 counts. And so all of my kids are still this far out reeling from something that was clearly not their fault. And the fact that he blames or says it was because he was a young person, and this was young and dumb, it doesn't take a smart or an older person to know that you don't hurt children, period. You don't hurt children. And I don't know if, I mean, he was physically abusive with me. And I always thought that would stop with me. I didn't realize that it would flow over into my children, but this is who he is as a person. This is substantially him as a person. The only reason that he is in there and doing quote unquote well is because he's in a controlled environment where he cannot hurt other people. And for that, I am thankful. But by letting him out, you're giving him an opportunity to hurt more people. Not my kids. My kids are grown and they are working through their issues. Even to this day, they are still in counseling. But I mean, there's other children that don't deserve this either. So wherever he goes, I mean, this is pathologically who he is. You know, he doesn't understand the difference between right and wrong, and you don't hurt kids, period. It doesn't matter if you're young and dumb. I mean, I've never met anybody who didn't draw the line. You don't touch kids. And I really strongly request and pray that you consider this and do not let this man out for parole. My kids are serving a life sentence, and they will for the rest of their lives as they try to, you know, continue to battle this. I mean, it affects them day to day, even today, in their relationships. So if they're not getting a break, I don't think he should either.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this morning. All right, Mr. Manning, would you answer any questions Ms. Stapleton has for you, please, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Manning. Tell me about the classes that you've taken so we can go ahead and talk about that for a second, and then we'll talk about the crime. What classes have you completed?
The phase 4 sex offender class,
Okay.
12 steps.
I'm a member of AANA,
Huh?
anger management, and a couple other classes.
Yeah, I see here victim awareness. Tell me something about, tell me about the sex offender treatment class. I mean, after taking that, do you see anything about it that makes you understand what your daughters and according to your ex-wife, son went through?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I learned a lot in it. I liked assault cycle and sexual contents that teachers of the laws caddis over him.
What?
But
I'm
yeah, it
sorry.
teaches. I
Something.
learned victim awareness is where I learned most of the stuff about what happened to the children, what they
Okay.
went through.
All right. And what did the sexual offender class teach you about how this happened and what you did?
It taught me it affected everybody,
Uh-huh.
from my kids to my ex-wife to my mom, my brother, everybody in the family, basically to the community and everybody.
Well, specifically, what about the watching pornography with the children? Let's start there.
Yes, ma'am. It was I know it was wrong now.
You know it was wrong now. And then another thing, you said you were young and dumb. How old were you when this was involving a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old? I don't know how your son was.
2001.
So how old were you?
26, 25.
Not that young and dumb, maybe, not that young. So you're 26, 25 versus a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. Was your son your victim also, like your wife said?
He was 8 years old, and no, ma'am, he wasn't there.
He wasn't your
They
victim?
proved that in court. No,
Well, I
ma'am.
know it goes
He
on
was a
to court.
victim. He was a victim because they was his sisters, but
Yeah, but you're saying you didn't do anything with him. He didn't have to watch any pornographic movies and you didn't touch him inappropriately. Is that what you're saying?
no, ma'am. I didn't do anything. What I was basically doing was trying to show my daughters about if somebody did try to molest them or did try to touch them.
Are you
what to do.
kidding me? Oh, really? You're gonna
No,
tell
ma'am.
me that you would put pornographic movies on a TV for children to watch to say, don't let this happen to you, when parents don't even want children to listen to curse words on TV?
When they acted like they didn't understand what I was telling them.
Huh?
When they acted like that they didn't understand what I told them, yes, ma'am, I did.
Well, that's when parents say this, don't let them touch you in places where your swimsuit's not at. Or if it makes you feel bad, you come to a daddy and daddy's gonna take care of it. That's the kind of training children get. That's a poor excuse for what you did. What about the touching? The actual touching, were you teaching them then that this is the kind of stuff you don't want to have done to you?
Yes, ma'am. I was showing them where it was proven in court that they had their clothes on. I mean, I was the dad that stayed with them.
And so
Mr. Mom.
there's where we go with this, that you were their father, the man that they trust. And that's what we see so often. You know, they talk about stranger danger, but actually when it comes to sexual and molestation and aggravated rapes and stuff like that, it's going to be, most of the time, it's going to be the daddy, the stepdad, the uncle, the grandfather, somebody who holds that position in their life. It's not going to be, in most cases, especially with children, a stranger. It's going to be somebody they trust. And then how long did this go on? It went on for years, didn't it?
No, ma'am. It was proven in court. It happened one time.
Well, I've got here from January of 1995 to October of, well, let's see. So January of 1995, and you're saying it happened one time. Did they just tell us that?
My daughter wasn't born till April of 95.
It says aggravated incest. Oh, I'm sorry. That's when you were charged. So when did it start?
I was charged in 2002. It happened in 2000.
It happened in 2000?
Yes, ma'am. I was an at-home dad. I stayed with the kids 24/7 for a whole year.
Oh, so
Wife is at work.
it happened during the
couldn't hear.
time of staying home with the children?
Yes, ma'am. I was being Mr. Mom at that time.
Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, I have a question. It looks like this case started out as a suspended sentence and you got a probation in this case? How
Yes,
did
sir,
that-
I failed it.
How did that probation turn out?
I was on probation for 4 years. The last year I failed drug tests. I went to rehab. After I graduated rehab, I never failed another drug test, but the PO picked them up from the months before. And they told me it'd be in my best interest to violate myself. So I thought I was gonna get a 90-day turnaround. That's what the law was then. I didn't understand.
But that drug test, that wasn't your only violation, was it?
Sir?
Was that drug test your only violation?
Yes, sir.
And they gave you 15 years for
marijuana.
violating a drug test?
20 years, sir.
I'm looking at the record and it's something different than that. It says, in August of 2011, it was discovered that Mr. Manning had changed his residence and was living in another residence with his girlfriend and her children for approximately 2 months. Mr. Manning was not officially charged. This was a violation known as a failure to register as a sex offender charge. Changing his residence and residing with minors was also considered major violations of the sex offender conditions. Several positive drug screens, including marijuana, were also noted on the motion to revoke.
Yes, sir. They proved it.
Some offender conditions too. And that's
They proved
what,
it.
but they didn't prove it.
Yeah, I went over there to the house when the kids were at school or the kids were going to their grandparents or the boyfriends and girlfriends' houses. I explained to that in court. And everybody else did too. I did go over there. It was my girlfriend. She came over to my house.
All right.
But the reason I violated my own parole was because of marijuana.
All right. That's all. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Manning, anything you want to say to us to close it out?
No, ma'am. I wish I could go back and change everything. I'm real regretful that I've hurt my family. And I can't explain how much I feel bad about it.
Here, I want to tell you, you did get your GED since you've been incarcerated. Congratulations on that. I know that's
Yes, ma'am.
achievement for you. I think we're ready to vote. I'll be voting first. I listened very carefully to what Ashley and Ms. Chadwick had to say. I've read the record. I've looked at what the record says, your reason for the judge revoked your probation. Today, sir, my vote's going to be to deny your parole for those reasons.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with Mrs. Renazzo. Strong opposition that we heard, and I agree with
Mr. Barra.
I concur with both of my colleagues for the same reasons.
All right. Good luck to you, Mr. Manning.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Turk, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the parole panel? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
Name is Stanley Turk, DOC number 257873.
Okay, sorry. And we do it a little different. I know you had a parole hearing back in 21. So let me just explain to you how today will go. I'm going to read the information to the record, ask you to confirm it. Then we're going to ask you to take a minute or two and tell us why you believe we ought to consider you or grant you an early release today. We do have, for the record, we just acknowledge that we have the Victims Assistance Coordinator from Natchitoches, Ms. Alice Partisan, who's here and wants to speak. With her is Kristen Parson, the Victim Assistance Coordinator for us, who is also on Zoom, and Tammy McClellan also wants to speak in opposition. So we'll hear from them at the appropriate time. We'll hear what the warden has to say, and then your case has been assigned to Mrs. Stapleton, so she'll take the lead on the interview questions after we've heard everybody speak. Okay, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Turk, you're classified as a second felony offender. You're currently serving a 15-year sentence. You were sentenced indecent behavior with a juvenile in March of 2012. You had a parole eligibility date, which is in March of 2022. You don't earn good time, so your full term date is March 23rd, 2027. Does all that sound correct to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Take a moment, sir, and tell us why you believe we should grant you parole today. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I've been incarcerated for 13 years. I did commit a crime, and it was a family member. And I knew since I've been in here, I needed to educate myself on what I did and understand it more. I took the self-help programs, and the main one I took was for sex offenders. And I finished all 4 phases, and I became a facilitator. Because I knew it would help me understand more of what I did and what I need to do to better myself. And took more self-help programs too, because the more help I get in here, the better off I'll be whenever I am growed out.
Great. Well, thank you, sir. Warden Dozat, is there anything you can add?
Stanley has not had any rule violations since he's been here at David Wade. So he's not a disciplinary issue. He is currently in reentry and has a good evaluation from his work supervisor. He does plan, as far as his residence plan, to move to Panama City, Florida, which we have not received any kind of verification of approval for any interstate compact. So that would be pending, and plans to draw his previous retirement, his retirement check from his previous job.
Thank you for that information. We'd like to hear from those who want to speak in opposition. And Ms. Alice, I'm going to let you, I don't know if Ms. McClellan, is she there with you? Yeah, y'all are still on mute. So Ms. McClellan, go ahead and tell us what you'd like us to know.
Hi, my name is Tammy. I am Brittany's mom, the victim in this case. Stan was married to my mom for most of my juvenile and adult life up until my mother's passing in 2013. Stan was considered to be a member of our family. My daughter called him Popo. He took my daughter. The abuse began while my husband was fighting cancer. So I have a husband who's fighting to stay with his daughter, and I have my mom's husband who is abusing my daughter, taking away her innocence, her trust, her faith in people. Brittany told, because she was scared that he would, since she was out of town for a month, that he would abuse her little sister or her little cousin. And that was something she couldn't deal with. Time goes on. Stan is convicted. He takes a plea bargain that we agreed to. My understanding at the time was that he was going to make my daughter take the stand. And my daughter was not strong enough for that. She had already had this horrific event happen from the age of 5 to the age of 12. Think about it, that's her whole childhood. When most kids are playing ball and laughing and having fun and learning to be a person. This person who's supposed to be a grandfather is abusing her. She took a class at her Catholic school that she was attending, and that's how she figured out what was wrong. Protecting God's children. I will forever be grateful to the Catholic Church for that, because my daughter figured out that this grandfather was hurting her, and he was wrong, but he made her believe it was her fault. She caused this. Can't tell us how, but she did. He goes away. Brittany starts getting her confidence back. I have a 24-year-old daughter who dedicates her life to helping other people. She is a nurse. She is fulfilling that dream. Her dream was also to go back to school in August. We had to put that on hold because this came up. So once again, this person is disrupting her life. My daughter's 24 years old. She's never had a boyfriend. She's never had any type of romantic relationship. And why? Because one selfish person took that away from her, shattered her trust, shattered her self-worth, her self-belief. We have given her the best support system we have. My entire family, my husband's family, we have gathered around her and we have done everything we can, but she isn't a part of her recovery, that it is on her now. It's her internal. When I had to tell her that I got the call that he was up for parole again, I had to watch that light, me, come out of my daughter's eyes. I had to see that fear come back. I know we can't stay in jail forever.
Kathy Anderson.
But my daughter has a lifetime sentence dealing with the abuse he put on her. My youngest daughter has a lifetime of watching her sister struggle to be the woman she was meant to be. Brittany was so loving. She loved to hug you and give you kisses and saw nothing but the good in life. Post Brittany, that little girl doesn't exist anymore because of him. He took that. He took it from her. He took it from me, my husband, my other daughter. I don't want him to get out. In his last parole hearing, he said that he made his daughter jack him off. Guess what? It wasn't me. He can't even remember who his victims are. I can tell you what I do remember, thanks to suppressed memories, and my brother had to confirm it for me. I woke up. I was sleeping in the living room. I woke up to something wet on my toes. I kicked. I didn't know what it was. It was him sucking on my toes. I didn't know what that was. I didn't understand it, so I had to ask my mom. I never knew there was such a thing as a foot fetish. It's just because he was drunk. I look like my mom. My daughter didn't. Did he do that to my daughter? I don't know. He can't remember how many victims he actually has in this world. I know my daughter is one. And I am begging you to give her the extra time. Make him stay into his maxed out date. Give her that to continue to heal. I believe she deserves it. I believe she deserves to get that next degree. She deserves to be able to work more, to maybe one day have a boyfriend. Her biggest dream is to be a mom. And at 24, she knows that she may never get to have that dream because the thought of letting someone touch her that way sends her into panic mode, shuts her down. In his last parole hearing, when he heard of Brittany's accomplishments, he was so proud. That's what he did. You don't have that right anymore. You lost that right. The day you touched what was mine, you lost that right.
Ms. McClellan, can you speak to us and not him? And we need you to wrap it up for us, please.
When he heard my daughter's voice, I could see the love or the infatuation, the obsession he has with my kid. I'm asking you for her. I've proven I don't care about myself. For her, give her the time she needs. Let him max out, and maybe we can protect some other children. And another mom's not sitting before some other judge doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hardison, is there anything you wanted to add?
Mr. Harrington, the district attorney, is here. He would like to speak.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for being
Good morning, members of the board. There's nothing I can say that is more powerful than what you just heard. But this defendant has caused this family a lifetime of pain and loss. And if I'm not mistaken, his full term date is in 2027. That really ends up being too soon. But if there's ever a case where a defendant should be denied parole, this is one. And this office strongly opposes this defendant's parole. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking to us. We appreciate it. All right, Mr. Turk, would you answer Mrs. Stapleton's questions, please?
Okay, well, Mr. Turk, I know that Tammy's not allowed to speak directly to you, but you did hear everything she had to say. And everything she said was going to be the questions that I was going to ask for you. I'm not going to double down on that because she's already covered so many, well, the important things. She talked about her daughter and what you stole from her, and those are going to be most of the times we don't have the victims here. The victim's voice is very important to be a part of this procedure. So I'm very glad, Tammy, that you were able to come here on behalf of your daughter. I can tell you as a victim's advocate, when I would go to court with victims and it would be a rape case, it was not unusual for the victim to say what they had to say. And then as we'd be walking out the doors, they'd say, okay, that's it. I'll never talk about this again because I don't want to hear that person's name and I don't want to say it again. So I do understand that this totally disrupts the peace that they finally find in life to have to go through something like this. And Brittany sounds like a wonderful young lady, and I hope that she will continue on the path that she's at. I imagine she's still in counseling. I do want to say, we do have crime victims reparations. I know the district attorney knows about that. So you have that, and then you have an organization called STAR, which is a very good organization for sexual assault survivors, which Brittany is. And those are two organizations that you may want to check in. So back to you, Mr. Turk. What I wanted to ask you is that when they did an assessment on you, and it was a sexual assault assessment, you still denied that you did anything wrong. That's so I wanted to ask you about that. You didn't find that you did anything wrong. Is that correct?
That I did do anything wrong?
You deny doing anything.
You deny that you did anything wrong?
No, ma'am. I did something wrong, very wrong.
Yeah, because it said because you touched on top of her clothes that.
Yes, ma'am.
let's see, he says, this is on the child sex predator assessment panel at the very end in 2024. When discussing the crime, he admitted acting inappropriately with the child by rubbing the hands or the genitals above her pants on one occasion. He denies any of the other wrongdoings. The incidents that took place when the victim was 11 years old and he was 55. So you just saying that it was just one time. Victim saying more than one time. And you still saying that it only happened once?
One time, yes, ma'am.
Okay. You got a -2 on the static score. That's something people look at. You have strong opposition, obviously from the DA, he just spoke, from the judge and the chief of police, and definitely from the victims. And like I said, there's really nothing more I can say. Her mother, thank goodness, you know, is her advocate today. She spoke up for her daughter. And I don't have anything else to say.
Mhm. All right. Is there anything you want to say to wrap it up before we vote, Mr. Turk?
Yes, ma'am. I truly regret all the pain and suffering that I caused, not only the victim, but the victim's family too. I can't take back what I did. I'm sorry it ever happened. And I understand where the mother's coming from.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate those remarks. I think we are prepared to vote. Mrs. Stapleton?
Okay, at this time, Mr. Turk, I'm gonna vote to deny. And you know, strong victim opposition, strong law enforcement opposition, and that's my reasoning.
Mr. Byron?
I concur for the same reasons.
And Mr. Turk, I do, based on the opposition that's been expressed here today and in the record, my vote today is to deny. You do have an outdate in the not too distant future, so use your time well there so you can prepare for that date. Good luck to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Milton. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
I'm Charles E. Milton Jr. My DOC number is 718-701.
All right, Mr. Milton, my name is Cheryl Renatza. This is Mrs. Stapleton to my left, Mr. Barrod to my right. We are your parole panel this morning. You've been through this process before in 2021, so I'm just going to dive right in and we'll get started. Mr. Milton, you're classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 20-year sentence, sentenced in January of 2017 for molestation of a juvenile. Your parole eligibility date was May 24 of 2022. Full term date is September 27, 2035. As I said, you were denied in October of 21 because of victim opposition and law enforcement opposition is what I noted. That was written in the record. So before we get started on our interview process, Mr. Milton, why don't you tell us why you think we should vote favorably for you today?
Well, I think I've come a long way since I've been here. I've taken the classes. I've realized what a godless life can get you, and I'm a prime example of that. I'm no longer godless. I'm very much with the Lord at this point, and I believe that gives me a solid lead on living a decent life, a good life outside these walls.
All right, Warden Dozat, what can you tell us about Mr. Milton?
Mr. Milton has only had one rule violation report. That was not long after he got here in 2017 for Rule 15, which was malingering at the time. He did get his GED here at David Wade in 2019. He is currently enrolled in reentry. I do want to note for the record that there was I think a misprint on when he began the sex offender treatment. That was actually in 2020. So he was able to complete all of the 4 phases. His residence plan is to go live with a sister in Virginia, but we do not have that approved through an interstate compact as of yet. And he does plan to work in the retail industry. So he continues to do well with no rule violation reports at this time at Wade.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Milton, your case has been assigned to me. So, how long have you been in jail for this offense?
I was arrested in 2015. So since 2015, I've been in jail the whole time.
8 years? 9 years?
Yes, ma'am, 9 years.
So you've served 9 years of your 20 years.
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
I'm sorry.
How old are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm 60 years old.
And as I read the record, the abuse of the victims occurred in that summer in 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
So you would have been 52?
Yes, ma'am.
Your original charge was aggravated rape, 2 counts of aggravated rape and 2 counts of molestation. No, you pled. You entered a plea agreement and pled guilty to counts of the molestation.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I don't really want to go into the details of what happened to these children. I do know there were 2 victims, 10 and 14 years old, and this all happened in response to a Craigslist ad and so on and so forth. What I will say is I want to acknowledge, as Warden Dozat said, that you did complete the sex offender treatment. You've done anger management. You did victim awareness and living in balance. Tell us what you got out of the victim awareness. Tell the panel how do you believe your actions affected those victims?
In a very negative way. My actions affected those victims. I can't tell you what I go through every day thinking about what I did and how wrong that was of me to even go there. I mean, even think it. I know that my actions have a definite reaction on everybody around me, whether it's good or bad. I just have to make sure that my actions are good for the sake of everybody around me.
What's your job there Wait.
I push laundry carts, ma'am.
Are you enrolled in reentry? I think she said. Or you?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in the classes I started about a month ago.
Mhm.
3 weeks ago.
Congratulations on your GED. And I do, when I look at your criminal history, I do see some prior arrests for misdemeanor battery. That was not priced. There is opposition to your
Yes,
early
ma'am.
release. As I'm sure you were advised at your previous hearing, the district attorney, Washita Parish Sheriff's Office, Monroe Police Department, as well as West Monroe. I don't have any other particular questions of you. As you said, as I mentioned, I don't want to go into the details of what happened. I'll defer to my colleagues if they have any questions. Any questions?
I don't have a question, and I understand where Ms. Renato is coming from, but this wasn't a minor thing, this Craigslist deal. I mean, it made the newspaper, right? And it was a group of men with a bunch of little boys and teenagers. So, I'm not gonna go into the details either. But then again, like I said, it wasn't just a one-on-one thing. It was a group of children and a group of men. And so, I don't have any questions.
Mr. Milton, anything else you want to say to us? I think we're prepared to vote, but we'd like to know if there's anything you'd like to tell us first.
So that's it, I think.
Well, I'm glad, so I'll be voting first, and I'm glad to hear what you said. I'm no longer a godless man.
Yes, ma'am.
Some comfort, and that's going to help prepare you for later. You've only served 8 years of a 20-year sentence, which is not even half of that term. So based on insufficient time served, in my view, for the crime that occurred, my vote today is to deny you parole, and I want to encourage you, though, to stay on the path you're on. Keep your faith.
Absolutely.
Reapply when
Absolutely.
eligible to do so, and we'll see what happens then. But my vote today is to deny for those reasons. Ms. Stapleton.
I concur with, Nancy.
Mr. Byron.
And I vote to deny based on the serious and violent nature of the crimes against multiple victims, the strong law enforcement opposition, and the strong victim opposition. Good luck.
All right, Mr. Milton, your parole has been denied. Stay the course. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
We're going to adjourn. It's 11:05. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You have a good day.
All right, we have one more item to discuss this morning, and that is a matter that Mr. Abbott will present to us.
Good morning, board. Coming before you today to address a reconsideration that was filed under seal. We received it on August 29th, 2024, and it was filed timely in accordance with board rules. As you all know, the available reasons for a reconsideration are misconduct by a committee member, a significant procedural error, or new evidence that was not available at the initial hearing. Having reviewed everything that was available to the board that day, watching reviewing the hearing and audio and video, and reviewing board policy dealing with parole decisions, applications for rehearing, and requests for reconsideration. I do believe that a procedural error may have occurred, and this matter is before you today.
Okay, well, I'm going to call for the vote, and a yes vote means that you will grant the reconsideration request, will schedule another hearing, and the no vote would be you don't want to grant the reconsideration request. So Mrs. State, yes, Mr. Byron.
Yes.
And I too vote yes, so it's a unanimous vote. We will grant another hearing.
Thank y'all for y'all's consideration today.
And that concludes our business.